Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So, I just watched Napoleon. Let's talk about it. So Napoleon is directed by Ridley Scott and stars Joaquin Phoenix. And before we dive into this video, I kind of want to start off with a disclaimer. This is not going to be like the regular reviews that I do here on this channel, where I discuss the pros and the cons of a film or a TV show, talk about things from a very well-rounded evaluative perspective. Like that's not what we're getting today. That's not what you're getting today, I'm afraid. So if you're a fan of that kind of content, apologies. I'll have more reviews coming up very soon, so stay tuned for those. I believe Wish is coming out this week, so like you have that to look forward to. But for those of you who enjoy my rants and enjoy me just going off about something that I'm really passionate about, then stay tuned, keep watching. Thank you for joining me today. But yeah, this is just going to be a discussion about some of the trends that I've noticed in Hollywood that have started to pop up again in these post-pandemic years, and just how I feel about some of these trends, because I'm over it and I'm pissed and annoyed and put off, and I won't be reviewing too many films of this kind again. So I'm going to take this opportunity as I review Napoleon to discuss all of these matters here. But of course, before we dive into all of that good stuff, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next, including those, other reviews that are far more well-rounded and even and nice and positive. I usually like to be that person. You guys know this, okay? But sometimes it's like, seriously, are we not past this? Anyway, we'll discuss, but thank you for joining me if you're still here, and let's get into this. So Napoleon is, of course, Ridley Scott's major historical epic that is centered on the French general turned emperor from the 18th to 19th century. I mean, the man needs no introduction, really, right? We've all heard of Napoleon at some point, whether you have detailed information about his background or not. Although having said that, after watching this film, you still won't. Don't expect this film to fill you in. But we've all heard of Napoleon. We all vaguely know that image of him and his stature and the stereotypes surrounding him. So yeah, we get it is the point. We get it when it comes to Napoleon. This film seeks to explore or dramatize the kind of highlights of his life. It kind of plays as a highlight reel, if I'm being honest. And so we get some historical moments where he ascends to power. We get some action on battlefields, which is pretty cool to see. And we'll dive into some of the positive aspects of this film later down the line, so that I am not just whinging and whining the entire time that I'm sitting here. Don't worry, there will be some positives. There are some things that I enjoyed about this film. But the overwhelming feeling that I got after watching this film, or the first thought that came to my mind is, oh, we're still doing this? We're really just still doing this shit. I thought we were over this shit. I thought we had moved on as a society from this shit. But no, we're still doing this, I guess. We're still doing the historical epics about important white men from history. We're still seeing this in 2023. I'm over it. I'm over it. I'm sick and tired of it. And I know what you're thinking, Jean. If you're so angry, then why did you see this film? It's the last chance that I'm giving this genre. I swear to you, it's the last chance that I'm giving this genre, at least when it comes to making a review. I might catch a couple on Netflix. Don't hold me to it, okay? If it's free with no extra cost, then I'll happily catch a couple on a streaming service. But if you expect to see me in a cinema to sit through 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of a historical epic about some dead white guy, think again. It's not happening. No more. It's not happening. No more. No more. There was no benefit to me from this. There was none whatsoever. Look at me. There was no benefit whatsoever for someone like me. I'm sick and tired of films like this being considered the apex of cinema. You have people like Martin Scorsese opening his 80-year-old mouth. No, okay. No offense to Martin Scorsese. All due respect to Martin Scorsese. But he's out here talking about how superhero films are destroying the culture. They're destroying cinema, blah, blah, blah. It's up to people like Christopher Nolan to come out there and restore justice, restore what is right when it comes to culture, when it comes to cinema. Meanwhile, Christopher Nolan directed 3 whole superhero films. 3 whole superhero films that put him on the global entertainment stage. But whatever, we move from that, I guess. It's up to him and directors like him to restore the culture of cinema that Martin Scorsese holds dear to his heart, because he is the arbiter of all that is good and just in the world of cinema, right? Because he created some iconic films, that means that he is the be-all and end-all opinion on this matter. So I guess for people like myself who grew up in the 21st century, who have enjoyed superhero franchises for the most part, I guess it's just fuck us, right? Because the restoration of true cinema involves more films like this. This is true cinema. According to people like Martin Scorsese and his class, okay, this is true cinema. It's the Oppenheimers, it's the Napoleons, it's the Maestros, it's the Ferraris. Like, this is what we are destined to have if we are truly to be cinephiles. This is what we should enjoy. This is true culture. It's just historical epics that are woefully bloated, okay, and so expensive, and that won't make any profit, mind you. Historical epics about dead white men who cheated on their wives. I'm over it, sorry. But what really angers me is that there's this culture, as Martin Scorsese refers to it, of cinephiles who genuinely just default into thinking that films like this are like the peak, the apex of what cinema has to offer. And honestly, honestly, it makes me sick to my stomach because I'm so over these kinds of films. I'm over it. It's all the freaking same. And yes, some of it is made better than others. Oppenheimer is a well-made film, but it's still in this same freaking class. It's still the same thing. And that's what I was trying to say in my Oppenheimer review. But I've had months to think about it now, and months to think about why it is I resent this film so much. And it's because from the second that it was revealed to be directed by Christopher Nolan and about Oppenheimer and blah, 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 it was already deemed a masterpiece. Like from the very second of its conception, it was deemed a masterpiece. Because this kind of class of director, this kind of class of film always is when it comes to this culture, when it comes to cinephiles. And I'm over it. And then here you have Napoleon swiftly following suit. Now, it was only when people actually saw this film that they realized, oh, actually, it's nowhere near as good as Oppenheimer. It's actually not a masterpiece. But the default thinking was that it was going to be. That is the key thing here to remember, because while you have other filmmakers who have to claw their way to the top, this class of filmmaker, and you know exactly what I'm talking about, this class of filmmaker can come out with films like this out the wazoo and they will be deemed Academy Award worthy. But other films will come out like The Woman King, like Till, like Rustin, and they have to climb their way to the top just to get an ounce of the attention that these other guys do. And for what? For them to produce the same old fucking thing over and over again. I've had enough. Literally, I've literally had enough. This is the same old shit. And that's not to say that they're all bad, okay? Like I said, I enjoyed Oppenheimer, whatever. That's not to say that they're all bad, but it's just the fact that these directors will fart out these kind of historical epics about the same kind of important white man from history who cheated on his wife with all these young mistresses, and it will automatically be on the board for award season. Like, it's a given. Right? Like, you already know that Bradley Cooper's going to get nominated, that, you know, Christopher Nolan's going to get you. It's already a given. You see the white male privilege at work here? The fact that it's already hailed as something that is awards worthy. It's a given. That is the privilege. It's the fact that it's a given. Other people have to prove themselves. Other people have to clamber up the top and get all of this endorsement and have people like me saying, trust me, this is really, really good. Go see this. But these lot are part of the default class. And so they can just pump out the same old shit over and over again, hitting the same freaking beats, and it's deemed a masterpiece. The default opinion is that they're going to produce a masterpiece, but then the onus is on them to mess it up. Like if they fail to produce that masterpiece, it's like, oh, well, we believed in you. You know, the whole industry was bolstering you. How did you not live up to that expectation? But already their status was here. It's up to them to climb down. Whereas other people are here and they have to climb their way up. And so it's films like this that just remind me of how broken the system is and how unfair it all is. Because really and truly, this is the same shit that we have seen time and time again, and not even done particularly well. But it was already in the awards conversation for what? For why? Please be serious. Please be serious. If you're going to nominate a film like this, at least let it be Netflix's The King, which was far superior, whatever. And also, to be fair, I actually like this genre. I enjoy historical dramas quite a bit, especially in the TV space. I think the TV space has nailed this superbly. We have had great shows like The Great itself, like The Empress from Netflix, The Serpent Queen, Marie Antoinette, the limited series from BBC earlier this year. Like, we have seen these eras be explored so brilliantly through these TV shows. And I think that also added to my anger towards Napoleon, because it's like, I've seen this done better a million times. This is just such an old-fashioned film in comparison to some of the new, more innovative and exciting takes on history and historical dramas that we have gotten recently. This is just so bland. It's so boring. And again, it just comes back to this thing of like, really, this is what Martin Scorsese wants us to go back to? This shit? We are moving away from that and we are doing just fine, Martin, okay? But you and your friends, you can continue crapping out this nonsense for as long as you want, but I'm tired of pretending like we all have to endorse it just because we're cinephiles, just because we respect the culture. Whose culture are we respecting? Whose culture are we trying to return to? Because it ain't mine. Films like Napoleon and even Oppenheimer, they just feel so freaking old-fashioned when you look at this new style of historical drama that has emerged in the last few years. And it's no coincidence that a lot of these other projects are centered on who? Women. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. If you're allergic to feminist discussions, you might want to look away now. Okay, you might want to switch channels if you haven't already. But this is going to be the feminist talk. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of seeing the way that women are treated in these historical dramas. I think it's absolutely repulsive. I think it's horrific, and I'm not endorsing it anymore. I'm not paying for these cinema tickets anymore. I'm over it. It's bad enough that there are no black people in these historical dramas. That's bad enough, right? And we will discuss that in a second. But, you know, as a black woman, I'm like, okay, fine. The black side already lost. Whatever. It's whatever. The woman's side, let's see what we can do here. Nothing. Apparently what we can do here is absolutely nothing. Ridley Scott really fumbled when it came to the main female character of this film, Josephine, Empress Josephine, who was Napoleon's wife. It's clear that he wanted her to be the stereotypical Lady Macbeth, that old saying of behind every great man is an even greater woman. Well, guess what? It's time for these great men to step aside. It's time for them to actually get the fuck out of the way. I am sick and tired of seeing the same stories about the same great men who accomplished great things, but only because they had their savvy, sassy wives to help them along the way, because that is the role of a woman, right? To help these powerful men along the way, to hold their hands along the way. And you might be thinking, oh, Gina, this is a historical drama. Of course, that's all that the women could do at that time. But like, why are we making these projects then? Why are we still interested in making these projects that set aside half of the world's population? I don't understand. I don't understand. And it's so male gazy as well, because they're trying to portray her as this powerful Lady Macbeth character. But her secret weapon, do you want to know her secret weapon? Her secret weapon is her pussy. No! There's nothing empowering about this. It's still through the male gaze. There's literally no empowerment to be found. Where? No empowerment to be found. Fuck off with that. And that's the difference between films like Napoleon, Oppenheimer, Maestro, Ferrari coming up soon. They're all the same. All of the female characters are literally the same. Don't be fooled by the brilliant actresses portraying them. You could swap them around and it'll be the exact same situation. These brilliant, clever women who are never able to, you know, achieve their own dreams because they were too busy holding their husband's hand. And I don't give a shit if it's historically accurate. The fact of the matter is, why are these directors so obsessed with these kinds of stories? Why can't they move on? Some of these other filmmakers are moving on. Some of these other filmmakers are giving us Everything Everywhere All at Once or Parasite. But these lots continue with this nonsense. But that is the difference between that and films and TV shows like The Great, like Marie Antoinette or The Serpent Queen, which actually gives its female characters dimension. Imagine that. Dimension. It gives them personalities. It gives them motives, thoughts, feelings, experiences. Like it's just night and day when you compare Vanessa Kirby's Josephine to any of these other ladies from these other projects, even, like I said, The Favourite. And honestly, the idea of us going back to the Josephine era where you just have, you know, the wife that is witty, that is sassy and charming, but at the same time, still relegated to being in her husband's shadow. If that's the only kind of role that's available to women in Martin Scorsese's cinema utopia, then he can fucking keep it. Honestly, he can keep it. Keep it in the 20th century. We've moved on. We've literally moved on. And some of these directors need to realize that. And the funny thing is that these directors really think that they're doing something with their portrayals of these Lady Macbeth-like female characters. Like in Napoleon, for instance, Josephine is having an affair. And she has an affair early on in her relationship with Napoleon. And it's supposed to be like a gotcha because, you know, it's usually the men that have affairs. But because, you know, she's a woman and she's having an affair. And so she's in control here. And Napoleon is just this helpless puppy dog who's in love with her and eating out of the palm of her hand. Meanwhile, he's also having an affair. He's also having several affairs, and it's stated like it's a matter of fact. Like, of course, you know, he's an 18th century man. Of course he's having multiple affairs, cheating on his wife. So he's still within that same class of man that we saw in Oppenheimer, that we're going to see in Maestro and in Ferrari. Like, it's the same thing still. Just because he loves his wife doesn't mean he's any different to any of them. And there's nothing empowering about Josephine's situation. That's something that these other projects understand, but clearly Ridley Scott and the like do not. There's nothing empowering about this because at the end of the day, she was swapped out for a 15-year-old when she couldn't produce an heir. So let's tell that story. Let's tell the story of how her superpower, her pussy, didn't work for too long because as soon as she wasn't able to bear children, she was grown out. And not to mention, behind all this talk of Josephine being the great woman behind Napoleon, being the one who made him, you know, she says to him several times, I made you, you know, you're nothing without me. Amongst all of that nonsense, there's no actual mention or exploration of what exactly she contributed other than opening up her legs. Like, there's no, like, what did she do? If she's such a political mastermind, like, how did she actually help Napoleon's regime or campaign? Like, what was her role? Oh, you don't know? Oh, you don't care to know? Okay, so then why bother with this angle? Because like I said, there's nothing empowering about it. It's very superficially done. It's a type of false feminism that's still done through the male gaze. So it's actually counterintuitive. It's actually not helpful. It's actually doing more harm than good. Meanwhile, you're trying to present her as this powerful and in control female character who still has the time to fill up her dresses with her ample bosom, that her breasts coming literally to her neck. I can see past this half-hearted attempt at creating a compelling female character. Like, whatever. It's 2023 and yet we're still playing games like it's 1943. Okay, cool. Okay. Now that I know, we're done. So all of that being said, so in conclusion, now that I have seen all there is to see from this kind of film, now that I know what to expect from this class of director, I'm no longer going to be rushing out to the cinema, paying my hard-earned coin to support such projects. I'm going to be focusing on other projects that are centered on people who are underrepresented in this bloody industry. Okay, exciting projects like Parasite, projects like Moonlight, even projects like Shape of Water, which I personally didn't love, but it's still doing something new, it's still doing something clever. This is the direction that I thought we were headed in when it came to prestigious awards worthy film. And of course there is a question about whether or not we should even take these awards seriously, but the fact of the matter is that they are taken seriously. Okay, and the fact that these kinds of films and these kinds of directors automatically get considered as part of that class, yes, because of their previous works, to be fair, but also because it'll be the same old shit over and over again. The same old gimmicks that they play. Christopher Nolan talking about how the film for Oppenheimer was like 10 miles long. Bradley Cooper talking about how, you know, he learned how to conduct for over 6 years so that he could perform 6 minutes of a piece. All this crap that they do every single year, and it's like, for what? You're not innovating. You're not breaking new ground, bursting through glass ceilings. You're just the status quo. It's the same old that we've been seeing for 100 years now. There is nothing special about any of this. So, thank you. Thank you for humoring my rant if you're still here. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear your opinions down below. If you agree or disagree, I do not mind, guys. I do not mind, so long as you don't call me the N-word. So long as you are not insulting or rude or, you know, just out of order. I really want to hear you guys' thoughts. But now let's talk about some of the positives. This is a very well made film. I think the budget for this film was about 200 million. It's another Apple TV Plus film, which I didn't realize at first, but I saw the logo once again. And this is the second time, of course, after watching Killers of the Flower Moon, which also cost about 200 million. So Apple TV Plus has a lot of money to spend on these prestigious, well-regarded directors. They definitely want the prestige of these directors, the names attached to their projects, and so they are shelling out all that coin, but they're not expecting any profit, clearly. They're not expecting to make back that money, and nor do they have to, because the iPhone 15 recently came out. So like they're gonna make it back in what, a Thursday evening? Like it's literally nothing to them. So yeah, they're putting all of their eggs in this basket so that they can get some awards recognition, which is ironic to me because they are the first streaming service to have a Best Picture winner in Coda, which didn't involve any of these historically highly acclaimed directors in the slightest. So going through this whole campaign and, you know, using this method, which is very old Hollywood, as I said, is quite bizarre to me because they've actually been innovators in this space and in the award space, as shown by their Coda win. But I suspect that this was already all in motion before Coda won Best Picture, so perhaps they weren't able to stop this new approach. Perhaps the train had already left the station. But still, it is a well-made film. You can definitely tell the difference between some of the films that have felt less cinematic that I've talked about recently versus something like this. Like, this feels like an epic. It feels like something that is supposed to be theatre worthy. And I enjoyed in particular the battle sequences because they were really epic in scale. They were horrifying, they were brutal, they felt grounded and real. And I think that's the part of the story that Ridley Scott really wanted to tell. That's what he really wanted to show and put to the screen. But then the Josephine stuff got in the way and he got muddled and confused and gave us just some of the worst female representation of all time. And unfortunately, it's part of a trend, as I've been saying, that we have been seeing resurface in this post-pandemic era. And I would expect such a thing from someone like Christopher Nolan, who doesn't know what to do with women. Like, he literally, pretty much none of his projects have good quality writing for female characters. So I wasn't surprised to see what Emily Blunt was forced to do in Oppenheimer. But Ridley Scott has had some good female representation in the past. So like, I really don't know what happened here, but it really feels like he was doing something with Empress Josephine that was supposed to be seen as, I don't know, empowering, feminine. I don't know. But either way, he failed. Another thing that I enjoyed was Joaquin Phoenix. Oh, he's always a joy. He's always a pleasure. You know, he's a good actor, that guy. That Joaquin guy. That Joaquin guy, he's a decent actor. Yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is good. I will say though, back to the negative, unfortunately, the accent thing was a little bit a lot distracting actually. Yeah, a lot distracting. Napoleon is French, well, he's Corsican, but you know, he spoke French, and I'm not expecting this to be a French language film made by Ridley Scott, but it was so distracting how not only did everyone have an English accent in this film, regardless of where they came from, whether they were Russian, Prussian, you know, Polish, French, Italian, they all had British accents, or really like South England accents. That was already bad enough, but the fact that Napoleon is the only one with an American accent, that's where you're really just you're really testing me. And the thing is, it works when it's like a parody of a show, like The Great, for instance, where you're not supposed to take it too seriously. But with Napoleon, well, I guess it doesn't really know what it wants to be, because there are times, for the most part, where it's supposed to be this serious historical drama epic of a film, the likes of which we have seen again for the last 100 years. But then there are times where it tries to be like a The Great, where it tries to be like a The Favorite, where it has these kind of injections of modern 21st century comedy that is funny but also just out of place for the rest of the film, and so the tone is a little bit all over the place, and this weird muddled tone kind of puts it in this like awkward middle space where it's nowhere near as good as some of the great historical epics that we have seen in the past, and also nowhere near as good as the historical dramedies or parodies like Death of Stalin or The Favorite or The Great that we've been getting in more recent years. But anyways, I was talking about the positives, right? Great action sequences. Joaquin Phoenix is a good actor. What else? Costumes. I like the costumes. Okay, I'm a really big fan of costume design, and you know, this seems to be pretty accurate to the time. Although, of course, you had the compulsory overspill of breasts coming from Josephine's Empire waistline. But fine, whatever. It's a historical drama, right? So overspilling boobs are required. I like the fact that Josephine's jewellery was accurate. For those of you who don't know, some of you guys might not, but I'm a really big fan of looking at historical jewellery, especially when I'm in my Pinterest mood, okay? When I'm in that Pinterest vibe. I've been stalking some historical jewellery on Pinterest for a while now, and so I recognize some of the iconic pieces that they recreated from Josephine's actual collection. Now, these jewels came from slaves. They came from slavery, they came from colonization, they're all blood diamonds, so there's that conflict that lives within me, okay, which disapproves of that side of things but thinks that they're still aesthetically pleasing. But setting that to the side for a second, I appreciate the fact that they were historically accurate for the most part, because I did recognize the recreations, and that's surprising considering Ridley Scott's blasé attitude to historical accuracy in general. Now listen, I have seen some of the quotes from interviews with Ridley Scott recently where he's just been talking out of his goddamn neck. This guy, Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, these older white male directors are just like, I don't know, they're in their like truth era. They're in their, I don't know what they're up to. But Ridley Scott, you know, has shown a very blasé attitude, as I said, towards historical accuracy. And so knowing this going into this film, I didn't expect much of it to be historically accurate. And sitting here having learned pretty much nothing about Napoleon in my history courses in school, I have no idea which parts were made up and which parts were historically accurate, I'm afraid. We did study the French Revolution in school, and so I know about the parts just before Napoleon, but we kind of stopped at the Napoleon era, so I wouldn't be able to fact check any of this, and quite frankly I have no interest in doing so, because that's not the part of this film that inspired much feeling in me. It's the part that pissed me off, okay, that has me sitting here today. Okay, so I seem to be delving back into the negatives of this film when I wanted to touch on some positives, but really those are all the positives that I can think of. I mean, Vanessa Kirby, you know, she's good here. The role that she's given is shit, but she makes the most of it, you know, playing this kind of cunning wife whose secret weapon is her vagina. And you know, she gets tossed to the side the second that she can no longer produce children. But yeah, she's good with the role that she's given, just like Emily Blunt was in Oppenheimer. And I'm sure, you know, Michelle Williams will be in Maestro and so on and so forth. I mean, this is what actresses are relegated to doing in this kind of cinematic culture, is portraying the wife that is constantly betrayed by the important but flawed husband. And you know what? Since we're already being a negative Nancy, let's just double down. Let's just go for it, right? You know, and as my final point, I have another negative, and that is I didn't really like the structure of the screenplay. I thought it was a little bit all over the place. I didn't feel like I was getting a proper biography of Napoleon's life. It was just kind of playing as a highlight reel, and so there wasn't really enough connective tissue for me to see like the flow of his life. You know, like I didn't really get a flow. I just got a, this scene was cool, that was awesome, remember when he did this, oh, and his wife was cheating on him again, oh, his wife wasn't able to have kids with him, oh, he really wanted to have kids with his wife, so he just was sleeping with her all the time, but it just didn't work. You know, like it was very much this as opposed to this, which is what I expected from a masterful filmmaker like Ridley Scott. But you know, maybe he wasn't on his A game for this one, you know. But that's enough of Bitchy Jean. Let's wrap it up and give this a score. And with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Napoleon a 6.5 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Napoleon, kind of, whatever, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this film, what you thought of my rants. Please don't hate me down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, especially for this one. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.